Hello, I'm Cheree Sauer. Thank you for joining me today. Grab your Bible, read along with me. We are going to be reading Mark chapters 5 through 7. If you don't have a Bible, go ahead and just listen along. They came to the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat, immediately a man from the tombs with an unclean spirit met him, and he had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one was able to bind him any more, even with a chain, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, and gashing himself with stones. Seeing Jesus from a distance, he ran up and bowed down before him, and shouting with a loud voice, he said, "What business do we have with each other, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you, by God, do not torment me." For he had been saying to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean spirit." And he was asking him, "What is your name?" And he said to him, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And he began to implore earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now there was a large herd of swine feeding nearby on the mountain. The demons implored him, saying, "Send us into the swine, so that we may enter them." Jesus gave them permission, and coming out, the unclean spirits entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. Their herdsmen ran away and reported it in the city and in the country, and the people came to see what it was that had happened. They came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed sitting down, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had the legion, and they became frightened. Those who had seen it described to them how it had happened to the demon-possessed man, and all about the swine. And they began to implore him to leave their region. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed was imploring him that he might accompany him. And he did not let him, but he said to him, "Go home to your people, and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he had mercy on you." And he went away and began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus had done for him, and everyone was amazed. Miracles and healing. When Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and so he stayed by the seashore. One of the synagogue officials, named Jairus, came up and on seeing him fell at his feet, and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her so that she will get well and live." And he went off with him, and a large crowd was following him and pressing in on him. A woman who had had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had endured much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was not helped at all, but rather had grown worse. After hearing about Jesus, she came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak, for she thought, "If I just touch his garments, I will get well." Immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt it in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Immediately Jesus, perceiving in himself the power proceeding from him had gone forth, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware of what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." While he was still speaking, they came from the house of the synagogue official, saying, "Your daughter has died. Why trouble the teacher anymore?" But Jesus, overhearing what was being spoken, said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid any longer, only believe." And he allowed no one to accompany him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. They came to the house of the synagogue official, and he saw a commotion and people loudly weeping and wailing. And entering in, he said to them, "Why make a commotion and weep? The child has not died, but is asleep." They began laughing at him. But putting them all out, he took along the child's father and mother and his own companions and entered the room where the child was. Taking the child by hand, he said to her, "Talitha, come," which translated means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately, the girl got up and began to walk, for she was 12 years old, and immediately they were completely astounded. And he gave them strict orders that no one should know about this, and he said that something should be given her to eat. Chapter 6. Teaching at Nazareth. Jesus went out from there and came into his hometown, and his disciples followed him. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and the many listeners were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? And what is this wisdom given to him? And such miracles as these performed by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown and among his own relatives and in his own household." And he could do no miracle there except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he wondered at their unbelief. And he was going around the villages teaching. The 12 sent out. And he summoned the 12 and began to send them out in pairs, and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. And he instructed them that they should take nothing for their journey except a mere staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belt, but to wear sandals. And he added, "Do not put on 2 tunics." And he said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave town. Any place that does not receive you or listen to you as you go out from there, shake the dust off your soles of your feet for a testimony against them." They went out and preached that men should repent. And they were casting out many demons and were anointing with oil many sick people and healing them. John's fate recalled. And King Herod heard of it, for his name had become well known, and people were saying, "John the Baptist has risen from the dead, and this is why these miraculous powers are at work in him." But others were saying, "He is Elijah," and others were saying, "He is a prophet, like one of the prophets of old." But when Herod heard of it, he kept saying, "John, who I beheaded, has risen?" For Herod himself had sent and had John arrested and bound in prison on account of Herodias, the wife of his brother Philip, because he had married her. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted to put him to death, and could not do so. For Herod was afraid of John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he kept him safe. And when he heard him, he was perplexed, but he used to enjoy listening to him. A strategic day came when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his lords and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. And when the daughter of Herodias herself came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his dinner guests, and the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you want, and I will give it to you." And he swore to her, "Whatever you ask of me, I will give it to you, up to half of my kingdom." And she went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask for?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist." Immediately she came in a hurry to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." And although the king was very sorry, yet because of his oaths and because of his dinner guests, he was unwilling to refuse her. I just always think about the pressure that we have from other people, that we cave in to the pressures of others, even though we know that it's wrong. Immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded him to bring back his head. And he went and had him beheaded in the prison, and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about this, they came and took away his body and laid it in a tomb. The apostles gathered together with Jesus, and they reported to him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a secluded place and rest a while." For there were many people coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. They went away in the boat to a secluded place by themselves. 5,000 fed. The people saw them going, and many recognized them and ran there together on foot from all the cities and got there ahead of them. When Jesus went ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he felt compassion for them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When it was already quite late, his disciples came to him and said, This place is desolate, and it is already quite late. Send them away so that they may go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and spend 200 denarii on bread and give them something to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do we have? Go look." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. And he commanded them all to sit down by groups on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and of 50s. And he took 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food and broke the loaves, and he kept giving them to the disciples to set before them. And he divided up the 2 fish among them all. They all ate and were satisfied. And they picked up 12 full baskets of the broken pieces and also of the fish. There were 5,000 men who ate the loaves. Jesus walks on the water. Immediately, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he himself was sending the crowd away. After bidding them farewell, he left for the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Seeing them straining at the oars, for the wind was against them, at about the 4th watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea, and he intended to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed that it was a ghost, and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke with them and said to them, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Then he got into the boat with them, and the wind stopped, and they were utterly astonished. For they had not gained any insight from the incident of the loaves, but their heart was hardened. When they had crossed over, they came to land at Gennesaret and moored to the shore. When they got out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him and ran about the whole country and began to carry here and there on their pallets those who were sick to the place they heard he was. Wherever he entered villages or cities or countryside, they were laying the sick in the marketplaces and imploring him that they might just touch the fringe of his cloak, and as many as touched it were being cured. Chapter 7. The Pharisees and some of the scribes gathered around him when they had come from Jerusalem, and had seen that some of his disciples were eating their bread with impure hands, that is, unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they carefully wash their hands, thus observing the traditions of the elders. And when they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they cleanse themselves. And there are many other things which they have received in order to observe, such as the washing of cups and pitchers and copper pots. The Pharisees and the scribes asked him, "Why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat their bread with impure hands?" And he said to them, "Rightly did Isaiah prophesy of you hypocrites, as it is written, 'This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far away from me. But in vain do they worship me, teaching as doctrines the precepts of men. Neglecting the commandment of God, you hold to the tradition of men.'" He was also saying to them, "You are experts at setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. For Moses said, 'Honor your father and your mother,' and he who speaks evil of father or mother is to be put to death. But you say, 'If a man says to his father or his mother, whatever I have that would help you is Corban,' that is to say, given to God. You no longer permit him to do anything for his father or his mother, this invalidating the word of God by your tradition, which you have handed down, and you do many things such as that." The heart of man. After he called the crowd to him again, he began saying to them, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside the man which can defile him if it goes into him, but the things which proceed out of the man are what defile the man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear." When he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples questioned him about the parable. And he said to them, "Are you so lacking in understanding also? Do you not understand that whatever goes into the man from outside cannot defile him, because it does not go into his heart, but into his stomach and is eliminated? Thus he declared all foods clean. And he was saying, that which proceeds out of the man, that is what defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murderers, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things proceed from within and defile the man." Jesus got up and went away from there to the region of Tyre. And when he had entered a house, he wanted no one to know of it. Yet he could not escape notice. But after hearing of him, a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately came and fell at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of the Syrophoenician race, and she kept asking him to cast the demon out of her daughter. And he was saying to her, "Let the children be satisfied first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." But she answered and said to him, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table feed on the children's crumbs." And he said to her, "Because of this answer, go, the demon has gone out of your daughter." And going back to her home, she found the child lying on the bed, the demon having left, all because of her faith. Again, he went out from the region of Tyre and came through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee within the region of Decapolis. They brought to him one who was deaf and spoke with difficulty, and they implored him to lay his hand on him. Jesus took him aside from the crowd by himself and put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, he touched his tongue with the saliva. And looking up to heaven with a deep sigh, he said to him, "Ephata, ephata," that is, "be opened." And his ears were opened, and the impediment of his tongue was removed, and he began speaking plainly. And he gave them orders not to tell anyone, but the more he ordered them, the more widely they continued to proclaim it. They were utterly astonished, saying, "He has done all things well. He makes even the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." That's the end of Mark chapters 5 through 7. Thank you so much for reading with me today.
Hi, friend, and welcome to Fear into Faith Global Bible Revival, where we're on a mission to get 1 million people to read the Bible cover to cover in a year. I'm your host, Summer Day, and with me today in the studio is Cheree Sauer. Ta-da! Bright and cheery and yellow. How are you doing?
I just want to match your summer sunshine.
Oh, you're winning. That's probably the best answer I've heard from anyone thus far. I love it. I support that. Yes, it's great.
Summer and sunshine.
Okay, tell everybody a little bit about you. Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Spokane, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived there my whole life, other than the last 3 years when we've lived in an RV and started traveling.
Oh, you just live in an RV and started traveling for 3 years. I wonder if I know someone who did that.
Weird.
In case you don't know, my husband and I did that. That's awesome. Are you back in Spokane right now, or?
Yes, we've been back for a year, unintentionally. We were planning to keep traveling, and now we are putting down our roots again. So,
And what's your favorite place you went to? You get asked that all the time.
You can ask that question.
Right.
All of the places. Silver Falls in Oregon. The San Diego Zoo was really cool.
Nice.
California, all parts of California. Anywhere there's ocean, you'll find me. Utah was beautiful. I would go back to Utah any day.
And you have kids?
More there. Yep, 2 kids, 11 and 9. Or sorry, no, they're 12 and 10 now.
12 and 10.
10.
Okay, so if we math, they were 7 and 9 when you started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they still want to travel, or are they good to put down?
They are ready to put down roots. That's why we're staying put. They joined a homeschool program and came home and was like, "Mom, we're running for president and treasurer." And I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that makes our answer for us."
Okay, there you go. I love it. How long have you been married?
Oh my gosh, going on. My husband always laughs at me because he knows the numbers and I don't. Going on 18 years, I think.
Good job. We'll pretend like you got it right for sure. And then what do you do?
I'm a life and business coach. I specialize in work-life balance and burnout.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. Specialize in work-life balance and burnout. I've been there, been there.
Me too, 4 times.
Wow. How long have you been doing that?
Gosh, how long have I been doing that? That specifically, about 4 years.
What's your favorite thing about doing that?
Oh, the women seeing the light at the end of the tunnel just after the first couple of sessions of that like weight off of their shoulders and just feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that they don't have to stay in this overwhelm and this oppression.
What's like the first thing you teach them?
I teach them how to manage their energy. So I find that most business owners, and I think just women in general, are going through the motions and wearing all the different hats and juggling all the things, and really helping them to figure out where they should be spending their time and their energy to be the most productive, the most profitable, and the most energized and fulfilled.
So good. So good. I always say that, in high school, like one semester of home ec does not make you a good mom or a good wife. And like, you don't learn any of those skills. Where do you ever learn the skills of time management or how to balance those things so you don't burn out?
Yeah.
I feel like you and me are the common denominator. I think if we had to guess, most women out there have suffered from burnout more than one time. And they don't know what they don't know. They don't have a system, right? So I love that. You bring in a system.
Yep.
So good.
Yeah. My background is sports medicine. So I worked with high-performing athletes for 14 years. I have a master's degree in sports psychology. And after getting burnt out for the fourth time, I was like, it's in sports, they have a 3-to-1 rest to performance ratio. In farming, they have a 3-to-1 rest to performance ratio. So why can't I apply this to my own life? And what if I could teach other people how to apply that to their lives and their businesses?
Okay, now what does that mean? 3-to-1
performance? Yep. So in sports, just to give you an example, they have a rest season, right, where they're not doing anything. It doesn't mean they're couch potatoes, but it's less intensity. Okay. They're still doing their sport. They're maybe shooting hoops, but they're having fun and they're enjoying it. And then they move into their preseason, which is where they are working on skill sets, right? Team building, that kind of stuff. And then they move into their competition season, and that becomes a higher intensity, but it's more about mindset. And then their peak season or postseason, that's like your March Madness, going for the Olympic gold medal. That's the busy season. That's the peak season. It's all about their sport in that season, and most other things get taken off their plate, right? And so in business, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, every single industry has slow seasons and they have busy seasons, and they might have a couple in between. And so I created something that's called the RAMP method. And so it teaches them how to rest, align, master, peak. So it's helping them create intentions and seasons within their business and within their life. Instead of being reactive, they get to be proactive and know what goes in each of those seasons and what does not go in those seasons.
So good. I love it. How does somebody find out how to coach with you? Do you have a website? Anything like that?
Yep. So a couple different ways. We have an ebook, Success Without Sacrifice. So 5 simple tools.
Oh, that's so good. Hold on. Success Without Sacrifice. It's possible.
Yes, it is possible. That's the name of our business, Success Without Sacrifice, because that's what I believe. That's what I've learned in my own life, is that I sacrificed my health, my relationships, my fulfillment. And I realized that we don't have to do that if we are just intentional about what we do and how we do it.
So can they buy your ebook on like Amazon?
They can just download it for free.
Oh, you're so awesome. They can get it for free. Okay, y'all need to go get Success Without Sacrifice. I think your website is ChereeSauer.com. Go get your copy. Because I guarantee some of you are having success and sacrifice, and let's just not take that off the table. I love it.
Yeah,
I want to read it now. I'm like, I need to apply some of that to my life. I love it. That's great. Yeah. And so you just came here and got a chance to read in the other room, read the Bible. What was that like for you?
It was good. It was interesting being on, like, reading a Bible. I've done it in person in Bible studies and in my own life, but never, to somebody. So that was really, really fun.
Did you feel like anything in any of the passages stuck out for you?
Yeah, honestly, the first ones were Mark chapters 5 through 7, and it was all about deliverance. And God has really been laying that on my heart lately, that I'm going to deliver some people in my family. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. And so it's like, these meeting you and your events, and then that just kind of like set it in there, like just keeps laying it on there, like little by little, getting me to step out of my comfort zone. So
yeah, it's interesting how some churches won't talk about that. I'm not sure why, because if you look at just the Gospels, deliverance is talked about like over 200 times.
Yeah. Just in Mark, like the amount of deliverance in those 2 chapters.
And then somehow that's just like the part that's left out. I don't know. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
Wow. So you felt like it was really speaking to you when you were reading it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I love it. Well, why did you want to come and read? What made you say yes to this project?
I just, for a long time, I was not in the Word. I didn't grow up Christian. I dabbled in and out of churches with friends and family and different things like that. And then when I was in college, we got invited to go to a Bible study. And so I started to learn more. And when I first started going to church, it was going because that's like what good people do, right? Like I felt like I should go to church.
When you go to church, there's a lot of people that aren't really good.
Yeah.
Not kind.
And I had this perception that if you were a Christian, you were a good person.
Oh.
And if you were not a Christian, not that you were a bad person necessarily, but that's not how it works. And that's
you had some very interesting theology. We're going to unpack that. But first, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back after this. And then we're going to hear
Kinky, curly, wavy, straight, no matter what texture of hair you have, your hair is uniquely you and can shine in its natural beauty, and you don't have to use harsh chemicals that hurt your hair to do it. Hair Rules has exactly what you need. Our non-toxic, nourishing blend of ingredients help you work with your unique hair texture and not against it. You've got beautiful and unique hair. It's time to start showing it. Visit ilovemytexture.com and treat your hair the way it deserves. Your choice, your hair, your rules. ilovemytexture.com.
Science fiction fans, how does a teenage boy from Ohio become king of the Milky Way? Find out in the new action-packed sci-fi book and audiobook series, Richard, by author Michael W. Hickman. With famous author DNA in his blood, Hickman weaves engaging and thrilling sci-fi stories in Richard, Distant Sun, Richard, an unlikely love story, and Richard, the Dragon's Curse. Search those book titles now on Audible and Amazon.
Welcome back, my friend. We're here with Cheree Sauer, and we were talking about, man, how you're a coach, and tell us the name of your business again.
Success without sacrifice.
Success without sacrifice. It just feels beautiful. It feels fabulous. And we were talking a little bit about just your sort of journey, and you were saying you weren't raised in the church and a bunch of other things. And actually, I want to go back to that.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that. Since you weren't raised in the church, do you remember when you first heard about God or anything like that?
Yeah. I remember
being the juicy details,
I remember being in church with my aunt and people talking about how you could pray to God.
And how old were you?
Oh, gosh. I don't even know. 5.
Oh,
4 or 5. I was young, little. And so I remember I would pray to God, and I remember we had a Bible at home and we would read the Bible, but my mom grew up Catholic. And so she was very anti-church, very anti-religion, not like anti-God, but we just didn't go to church. She didn't like it. It just was not a part of her life. And then I went to church here and there with friends and different family through high school and whatnot. But
like you'd have a slumber party and next day go to church.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And, I had always prayed to God. I believed in God, but I didn't really know Jesus. I didn't know Jesus Christ. I didn't really know what that meant. And I thought it was weird.
God was okay, but Jesus was weird.
Yeah. It was like Jesus freaks,
So did you know Jesus freaks?
Not really, no. It was more just...
Hi, I'm Summer Dan with Jesus Freak. Nice to meet you.
So I remember being in college.
Okay.
And I was studying because I was a high achiever. I was always studying. And I was just sitting in the cafeteria one night by myself. It's like super late. And this girl comes up and she's like, "Do you know Jesus?" And I was like, well I pray to God, and like I believe in God. And she's like, "Well, can I just pray for you?" And so I was like, "Sure." This is like super awkward,
super creepy,
like super weird, know. And then that was that. And then
she prayed for you. How did you feel when she prayed for you?
It was awkward. I felt really weird and really awkward. And to this day, I'm like, well, maybe that's what led me to, I don't know. I don't know. At the time it was weird and it was awkward, but so that was kind of my journey. And then
you can check out the rest of this interview right here or by going to BibleRevival.tv. And if this show has blessed you, you can help us bless others by partnering with us for as little as $20 a month and help us to expand the reach of this show. We'd also like to invite you to join our Kingdom Discipleship Program, where you have an opportunity to get on weekly Bible Zoom calls with us and people around the world to deep dive into His Word. And you can check all that out at BibleRevival.tv. I'll see you next time, my friend.